Across the Galaxy presents The Midweek Show. I'm your host, Bryant Lobos, and per usual, my co-host, Edgar Zuniga. How you doing, sir?
What's up, man? As you can see, I'm still camping outside the stadium. I was here during the hurricane, and I got here early for the Nag Keg and Jamboree, but nobody else showed up. So I don't know, man. I'm still here. I mean, it's supposed to go down this Saturday, maybe, or I heard it's gonna be pumped out again. But you know what? Doesn't matter. It's not about me today. We have a special guest, Bryant. Can you
Yes,
present
we do.
ourselves?
All the way from Chicago, Illinois, representing the Chicago Fire. From Feed the Fire podcast, Sir Nick, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Happy to be talking a little Galaxy versus Fire with you guys. This matchup of the old teams here, some of the original team and the original expansion team. Like we always look forward to the Galaxy matchups when they occur.
You
Yeah,
sure about
of
that?
course.
You sure about that, Nick? Because I gotta
As
bring
a
it
as
up,
a
man.
fan, as a fan, I look forward to it. But also
Uh,
as a fan of the Chicago Fire, I know we probably shouldn't look forward to 3 points either.
Yeah, what we're talking about is that we were looking up, the prior, encounters between both clubs, and Galaxy's done pretty good against Chicago as of late. And when I mean as of late, I mean since 2010, which was the last time that Chicago beat the Galaxy, which is mind blowing to me because I remember Chicago used to torment the Galaxy back in the day, but it's been 13 years. That's a long time. What's going on, Nick?
Well, man, I just think back like 13 years ago, 13 years ago, summer, fall, I was like studying for the bar exam, like trying to find a job. I was like the last thing on my mind was trying to get to a Fire Galaxy game. But looking back over things the last decade plus, um, everything that could go wrong for the Fire has gone wrong for the Fire. Ownership groups weren't investing as they needed to. They left Soldier Field, went out to the suburbs in Bridgeview for a new stadium. Now they're back at Soldier Field. They've had, I think, now three different ownership groups in that span. Coaches just don't seem to have it together when they're coaching the Fire. And on top of it, they've missed on just about every single one of their designated player signings. And as you guys know in MLS, you need your DPs to play well if you expect to compete in the league. I think the only two DPs that I would say were good signings for the Fire, Bastian Schweinsteiger and Cuauhtemoc Blanco. Everyone after that and before them has not lived up to that contract. So take all of that together, take all of that with the expansion of the league and new teams coming in and all these other things. The Fire haven't adapted. The Fire haven't gotten back to their old glories of the 90s and 2000s.
It's a shame because former Galaxy player Ezra Hendrickson was one of your managers, and he was your most recent manager that got let go. And I remember when I heard he got appointed, I was so happy for him because Ezra Hendrickson is a really nice person, and I figured with all that experience that he had with Seattle, and I think he was also a Chief of USA, I think. So I figured, yeah, this is the right man for the job. And I was hoping that with the return to Chicago, as far as Soldier Field is concerned, that there would be a kind of a renaissance, especially because we mentioned how the team's been through all these different ownership groups, and it just didn't work out that way. Which, like I said, I feel bad for Ezra. Like I know him personally, and he's like I say, he's a good person. But being a good person doesn't equate to success as a manager. So that must have been really frustrating for you guys. And piggybacking off of that, because I want you to tell me what you thought about his time with the team. But can you tell me what the plan is as far as the stadium is concerned? Because I know the Bears are looking to get out of Soldier Field, and that stadium looks so weird since they remodeled it and since I guess I don't know. I miss the old Soldier Field. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers it, but the new one looks really weird. It's like a spaceship landed on it or something.
That's what
But
everyone refers it to, the spaceship on the lakefront. Yeah, and I'll tell you, you come to Chicago and you tell anybody here like, "Hey, man, I really wish we could see those columns again in the stadium." You'll immediately make friends. Like Chicago sports fans still hate the renovation of Soldier Field, but as far as like the big plan, I mean, the new ownership group took over just over 2 years ago, Joe Mansueto, who founded Morningstar, this investment firm, um, financial wealth management, investment, all this stuff. So the man has made his money, and my speculation is he just wants to see where he needs to invest it. So now that he's 2.5 years into owning the Fire, he also purchased FC Lugano over in Switzerland in the Swiss league. So you've seen a couple player transfers back and forth. Most recently, the Fire's new designated player, Ousmane Doumbé, from Lugano. He apparently was one of like the best passers in the Swiss league and this great defensive midfielder. Haven't seen it yet in a Fire uniform, but he's only played maybe 3 games to this point. Um, so my speculation is that Mansueto is just looking to see where can I smartly invest my money, and he has really relied on his sporting director, Sebastian Pelzer, and his general manager George Heitz to really guide the Chicago Fire, guide the club in all aspects, and even get involved a little bit in Lugano. But we're seeing that even with their management, with their quote unquote experience, there's been no change on the field. There's been no change in results. The Fire last made the playoffs in 2017, and I think before that, it had been a few years even. So that was only because we had Nikolic, the Golden Boot winner in 2017, that they actually made the playoffs. So that's kind of the big picture of it, and we really hoped as Fire fans too that Ezra Hendrickson was going to come in, be a coach who knew the league, not like former coach Rafa Wicki, who really tried to play like he did when he was coaching in Switzerland and overseas. Um, Ezra knew the league, he knew the players, he knew how to win, but unfortunately, his tactics didn't really translate to the roster. And I think that would be the nice way of putting it. If you wanted to put it more harshly, he didn't make adjustments. His substitutions were predictable. If you look at the sub patterns during the game timelines, it was like 60th minute, 65th, 75th, like clockwork, man. He would make the same subs, same times every game, so he could not adjust to the game flows. He really wanted to play with those wingbacks, just like he was when he played in the league. He loved watching Miguel Navarro, the left back, bomb down the field. They went out and got a French player, Arnaud Souquet, who usually starts at right back, who can just bomb down the field and get some crosses in. But then you see, where's the money invested? Xherdan Shaqiri, a midfielder, attacking midfielder, and then the young talent is Brian Gutierrez, a midfielder. They didn't sign any good strikers. So what's the point of employing those tactics where you're bringing wing backs up to play crosses in if you don't have a striker? I think Kasper Shabilko was a stopgap. He has not performed. And so you have a manager in Ezra who had these brilliant tactical ideas. You had a front office who was just throwing players at a roster, and it never really came together. And unfortunately for Ezra, I think ownership's just about to clean house this season.
You mentioned Shakiri, and from an outsider's point of view, we were very curious to see how he would perform because he wasn't somebody that was like in the twilight of his career. He came in, he's still pretty young, and it was this thing where, okay, you're poking it with a stick. Okay, do something. Come on, let's see. Let's see you shine. Come on, Chicago really needs you to do something. And once in a while, he'll show like signs of something, but it's not consistent, right?
No, and at one point, Shaqiri was the highest paid player in Major League Soccer. Like, you expect production out of that. You expect something on the pitch, even if he's not scoring goals. Give me a little fire here, right? Like, you guys are Galaxy fans. You've had big name players. You've had expensive players. You know what to expect out of a high quality, high paid DP. Um, and so yeah, we didn't see it here in Chicago. And at first, people said, "Oh, he's just doing this to train for the World Cup." They have some handshake agreement where they're not going to roll him out every week, 90 minutes. Don't play him on turf. That way he's ready for the World Cup. And I guess Chicago fans kind of bought into that. They realized we weren't any good last year. So let's just take the year for what it is. And then in 2023, we'll see what Shaqiri can do. And he kind of picked up where he left off last year. Very lethargic, didn't really seem to care. I think Ezra's firing really kind of motivated him a little bit more. Now, the rumors are that he didn't get along with Ezra from either a tactical standpoint or just kind of a locker room standpoint. Again, rumors. But when you see his play pick up after the head coach is fired, you kind of start to wonder. And but again, he's not scoring, not assisting. He is actually best, or where I've seen him best employed is, kind of the guy on the field telling everybody else where to go. He's really trying to get these players to play faster, to play more direct, just like he had played when he was in Liverpool and Bayern. The other little criticism that people gave and that I would join in is when he was at these big clubs, he was never the guy. He never had to be the one to score the goals and carry Liverpool to a trophy or help Bayern through
Yeah.
Champions League. He was just a solid role player off the bench. Like the last time he was the guy is when he was helping Stoke City avoid relegation. So the role that the Chicago Fire wanted him to play is not something that he had done in his career. And again, it speaks to what's the profile of player that the Fire are signing. They just needed to make a dangle something shiny and fancy in front of everybody to say, "Look, we're doing our jobs. Hey, we can sign big names." But actually, the worst part is I think he was kind of the consolation when the Galaxy signed Chicharito because everybody in Chicago wanted to see Javier Hernandez here playing, especially with the Mexican fan base in Chicago as well. I would have loved to see him come up, despite all of our feelings towards El Tree and how he's played a role against the U.S. as well as against, my Everton team in the Premier League. But I would have loved to see him wearing red in Chicago and just prowling the box here on the lakefront at Soldier Field. But couldn't get that done, and they ended up with Shaqiri.
He would have been a great fit actually because when you mentioned like great Chicago teams, I think of Cuauhtemoc, and he was such a I credit to him. He did not come in here and like just pretty much just take a paycheck and chill. He actually came in and he played his ass off, and you could tell when the way he would celebrate his goals and the way he seemed very passionate about the team. So somebody like Chicharito would have been great. Who knows? You might still see him there because there's his future at Galaxy is up in the air. There's no guarantee he's going to be here for next season. Um, and as far as that's concerned, when about a year ago we had the future in Dejan Jovic. Now that future isn't so clear anymore. So I know that's up in the air. Chicharito probably won't be around for next season. So is he going to stay in MLS? Maybe. He might want to go to Chicago and see if he can come back from that horrific injury. Um,
After that
but
ACL tear, you guys keep him. Like I'm over.
well, in that case, I have a deal for you. And you know where this is going, Brian.
Yep,
We'll throw in
another Mexican player.
Efrain Alvarez. You can have Efrain Alvarez and a McDonald's franchise to go along with him. So, because we call them Chicky Nuggies.
I mean, who are you going to want back in return, or is that just like just a goodwill gesture? Here, you take these guys.
Please.
Goodwill gesture. We want you to
We're
take
looking
them.
for outside backs. We're looking for outside backs. If Effer can make a move, sure, why not?
Convert them to that left back that you need.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that throwing out shiny new things. Something that irked me as an MLS, I guess old timey guy is I miss the old Chicago Fire logo. I thought that was so nice. When that logo first came out, there was nothing like it in MLS. And except for maybe the DC logo, DC United always had something that was pretty timeless, and that's what I thought of the Chicago Fire logo. I was like, this logo is timeless. This thing is gonna stand the test of time. It looks so different. It's so sharp. It looked fantastic, right? And then we got the fire on the lakefront crown thing, whatever that is. I mean, and then I understand trying to modernize the old one, but it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
What do you
No,
think?
man, you're just echoing the sentiments of every Chicago Fire fan. Like I look at when the Galaxy rebranded, like that is a slick, it is simple, it is a modern look, but it hails back. That crown logo, that was just garbage. Like people did not know how to describe it in any sort of positive terms. And when Joe Mansueto took over the team, like that was the first thing in like one of his earliest press announcements. We're gonna redo the logo, guys. Don't worry about that. We have heard your complaints. We are redoing the logo. So yeah, I mean the Chicago Fire original logo is just classic. I think it was one of the best looking logos in all of American sports, not just within MLS. Um, I'm happy with the current logo. It does kind of give a little of that throwback with the Florian cross. And the colors have changed to match the Chicago flag, so they're trying to get on board with that. But I'll take it. I'll take it now. The next gripe you want to talk about fashion, the Chicago Fire don't have a red kit. Playing
Yes.
in white and navy blue for the last several years.
Yes.
We're trying to bring back the red. That's like the subtle fan movement out there. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Bring back those old red kits with the white stripe across the front. Those were classy, and you knew right away who you were playing, right? Um,
Oh yeah.
and like you said, there hasn't been a red kit in a while. I thought the one they put out this year was pretty good, considering what it was. I thought, hey, there's hints of red. Maybe they're heading back in the right direction because next season's kit has to be a solid color. So I'm guessing we're gonna see some red, right?
Fingers crossed,
Um,
man. I haven't heard anything one way or other, but I'd love it. But let me ask you guys, because we've started to see this with our young striker, Yorgos Koutsias, 19 years old from Greece, tucks the jersey. Speaking of jerseys, where do you guys fall on the tuck argument, in or out?
Love it. Love the tuck jersey argument. Our very own Ricky Poos tucks his jersey. I myself been tucking my jersey since I started playing at 7 years old. It just looks very classy. It looks like you could actually play. So I'm in with the jersey tucked in.
Yeah, I used to always tuck my jersey until like my tummy grew out, and I would just let it hang. But yeah, no. I feel like when a player tucks his jersey, this guy is ready to go to work. He's like in the office. Yeah, he's showing that professional. Like, yeah, I'm not here to play around. I'm here to work. Let's get some things done. So yeah, I like it. I mean, it shows like something different about a player. Like it had like a more modern Renaissance man. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I'm trying to think of it. I'm imagining like if Don Draper were to lace up the boots, he would tuck his shirt.
Well, to
Yeah,
me, it
I
usually
agree.
seems like it's a no nonsense type of player. Like one of my
Yeah.
favorite players that I grew up watching was Edgar Davids, and Edgar Davids always had his shirt tucked in, and he was a monster on the pitch. So those type of guys that always tuck their shirt in, to me, it seems like they're no nonsense, especially if they're
Okay.
wearing the Copa's Adidas for their game time boots.
Oh my gosh. So we all must have grown up in the 90s then. That's pretty obvious if that's what we're referencing. But
Yeah.
no, I had a referee tell me once when I was playing, he goes, you got to tuck your shirt in. Not only is it a rule, but that way I can see when the other team's tugging at your jersey. If your shirt gets pulled out, I know they're following you. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, Mr. Referee. Make sure you call the fouls now, which he did not, of course. But it was an argument. It was an argument.
You know, Danny Pena, former Galaxy player, defender. The guy was a monster on the pitch, and I remember he actually taught me how to get around that. He's like, yeah, you gotta grab the shirt like this a little bit. He goes, and all you gotta do is like twist your hand, and then you give him like a quick, punch to the liver. He goes, they'll feel it. I mean, you're not the kidneys. He goes like, oh, they'll feel it, and just that one little that they do, it's enough to get you around them and get the ball away. And I was like,
Okay.
man, this guy is so dirty, but it's fantastic. And I would do that sometimes, but I felt kind of bad doing that stuff. But yeah, going back to the teams.
Yeah.
I was looking at your recent run of play. You guys were actually on a roll until we had the League's Cup break. As far I'm talking about MLS, and then you come back, and oh my God, Orlando City just danced over the team. What happened?
So if anyone's been listening to my show or goes back and listens to some old episodes, you'll see that yeah, leading up to League's Cup, the Fire won 5 of 6. Their only loss in those was a 3-1 loss to Orlando City. So deja vu here. Uh, I was still very critical of the team even when they were winning these games because who were they playing? They had beat Portland 2-1, I believe at the time, or
Yeah,
1-0. It
two to
was a
one.
one goal. I think it was 1-0. in Portland. It was the first time since the Timbers joined Major League Soccer that the Fire had beat the Timbers. Like it was this, everyone was so high on the Fire. Like we finally did it. This is a historic win. The season turned around. Then they go play Kansas City and beat Kansas City 2-1, I think. Then they end up playing a few other teams who are all below them in the standings. And if you're below the Fire in the Eastern Conference, man, I don't know what to tell you. Like, fire everybody. Like the bottom of the Eastern Conference is not good. I think they beat Montreal in that run of play. So I'm
TFC.
looking. What's that?
It also beat TFC.
And TFC. Thank you. So their opponents were not good, and I think they caught a banged up and injured Portland team. They caught a rotated Kansas City team. They caught just a bad TFC in turmoil team as well. So I was not as excited as a lot of fans were to see a team win out of 6 games. Where I kind of started coming around was in League's Cup because you saw them beat, I believe it was Pachuca they played. They ended up beating them. Then they go and like stomp on Minnesota. It was like 4-0. And then they go toe to toe with Club America. And I was really impressed. I said, okay, their League's Cup form, maybe they finally turned the corner. Let's see if what this translates to coming back to MLS. And it translated into a home loss against Orlando City. You saw a lot of players out of position. You had their defensive midfielder Usman Doumbia dropping back, playing center back almost at times, which was really disheartening. You had when they made their tactical adjustments in the second half, you had Kasper Shabilko and Kai Kamara trying to play a dual striker. Um, but Shabilko, I think he's done. He is mentally checked out. He's been mailing it in. You saw him dropping his plays. That's not where a striker belongs. You even saw him making runs into Kai Kamara. So I just think the team it's kind of just a thrown together kind of team. They're just trying to ride it out. I don't think the mentality is there. Plus, it didn't help that interim manager Frank Klopas had COVID, so he was out for the week and was not out at the game. So maybe there was a little bit of a break in routine for these guys. So, yeah, as good as the Fire had been leading into League's Cup, I think it was a little bit of fool's gold, and you see the result now against Orlando City.
I mean, we can't really bash on Orlando. They are fourth in the East. So it is like Chicago. They face a good team. But let me ask you about that Leagues Cup.
Yeah.
What did you think about the Leagues Cup? Were you fine with it? Were you fine with the Leagues Cup taking time off of MLS? Because there was teams that were coming in form. One of them was our LA Galaxy. They did lose the last one, but they were on a good streak, and I'm pretty sure there was other teams on a good streak as well. And just to take a break for this, how did you feel about this Leagues Cup?
So I mean I can come at it from so many different angles, right? Like as a Fire fan, just like your Galaxy, they were in good form. They finally had a little momentum. Did we want to take a break from that? But on the flip side, hey, let's take that momentum and make a run. We're in the central bracket. This could be the opportunity for the Fire to really make a run in a tournament. And if everything breaks their way, get into that third place game and maybe play for a Champions League spot. Like that would have been the ideal. So I think Fire fans who still have a little nostalgia for the US Open Cup days of the early 2000s when the Fire were winning those trophies, they're like, cool, this is another tournament. We know the regular season is going to be tough to make the playoffs. Here's where we can show off. So a lot of Fire fans were excited about it. Just as a fan of soccer, I'm like, more games, more action. Like, bring on Liga MX. Let's look at Juarez. Let's look at all these clubs that we never get to see. So I was a fan of it from that perspective. But you know what? As an MLS fan, yeah, it kind of sucks that it's taken away from our regular schedule. So I try to just rationalize it all and just say more soccer is more fun. It gives us more stuff to talk about. And I'm going to let the league make those decisions. And if it brings in all this money and it leads to a fourth DP spot or some salary cap restrictions easing up, then it's good for it in the long run. I mean, what's the feeling in California for it? I mean, you guys had a lot of teams who were playing pretty well.
Yeah, me as a Galaxy fan, I hated it just because of the roster depth that we lack in the LA Galaxy. Brugman went down before the Leagues Cup. Now imagine during Leagues Cup, a player like Ricky goes down. or Tyler Boyd goes down. I didn't want
Yeah.
any of that to boil over, and our season's already done for. But you don't want those long-term injuries, especially in a player like Ricky. If, let's say, worst case scenario, he did get injured, it's a player that we want to have long-term. You don't want those type of injuries to happen and those type of things. The only silver lining I did like about this tournament is that no Liga MX team won it. So, haha, in your face, Liga MX.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I'm happy about. Aside from that, I wasn't really a big fan of it, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, it was like to me it was like reverse Champions League.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was, like I've said before, I was one of the people that at first was kind of skeptical, and then I kind of I kind of liked it. The only thing is, like, I feel like future iterations, they had to be more um, accommodating to the Liga MX teams. Instead of those poor guys have been living out of their suitcases for what, 2 3 weeks almost sometimes.
Right.
And it's not fair. Give them at least a home stadium where they get called. This is our home base. This is where we're gonna stay when we play our home games, or let them play it in their actual homes in Mexico and see how that works. But I'm guessing this is like the first step in the evolution of this tournament. We'll see how it works in the future. If it's gonna continue involving all the teams in both leagues, or if just gonna be like maybe the top teams. So it was a good test run, more like a stage to for a coronation for Leo Messi also.
Yeah.
I
Do
mean,
you buy into the whole idea that like they did made this tournament for him to come in and win it?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard so many different things. Me personally, I love Leo Messi. I'm an old Barcelona fan, so I was a Barcelona fan before he came in, and I'm still a Barcelona fan now, and uh, one of the greatest players ever. People say, "Oh, he's the greatest ever." Like, in my opinion, I still think Pele was the greatest ever. But
Fair.
um, yeah, I have nothing against Messi. The fact that we can say that he's playing for our league is amazing, and not just him. Look at the people he brought with him. This all helps elevate the league, right? When the tide rises, everyone rises, right? I'm just hoping that all of this translates into that boost that every team across the league will feel. Just like when Beckham came over, it elevated the profile of this league. But at the same time, there's been a lot of really suspicious things happening, like that own goal by SC Dallas. That dude just like Messi lobs this ball into it was a big pass into nothing, and then this guy from Dallas just comes in there and drills the greatest header of his life, and it's an own goal. And I was like, damn, that is really sus, man.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
I didn't watch that game. I watched the highlights, and I didn't know which way Dallas was playing in that because he banged it with such conviction into his own net. Yeah,
Well, own goals are
But
always bangers. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Own goals always bangers. So I mean, it could have just been a bad defensive play. But to say that the league is making it so that Messi could win. I mean, this guy is just the generational talent. He just makes it look that easy.
yeah,
Even if he's not on the ball, everything around him, kind of gravitates to his skill. And everybody in that Miami team has raised their game up. So it's just the
absolutely.
Messi effect. And I love it because this is what we needed in MLS for a long time. And now that he's here, we get to watch the greatest of all time. And that's a big, big move for MLS. And I love it.
Yeah, and you guys are lucky you're not in the conference, so you don't have to play him while we're trying to hold on to a playoff spot. But I'm with you guys on that. We need a player of this quality and several players of this quality because I agree with the criticism that MLS defenses are subpar. They're not where they need to be. But on the flip side of it, like I agree. Everyone says Messi's coming in, he's showing how terrible our defenses are. Great, fine. Flip side, why can't any other offensive player in the league then do half of what he's doing? Like I think he's exposing how the strikers and attacking midfielders aren't doing the right things. And where I will hesitate and say, "Oh, it's a conspiracy." No, it's not. Because if you look at a lot of his goals, I mean, he's just finding gaps. Like he's not taking on three defenders and then bending it over the goalie's hand. Couple of great free kicks, no doubt about it. He had that one like 30-yard goal. Was that against Philly? That he just picked his head up, saw Andre Blake cheating, and found the opposite post. But he's just getting into the gaps. He's making the right runs. He's such a smart player. And to tie it back into kind of our Chicago Galaxy discussion, that's what we as Chicago fans expected out of a Xherdan Shaqiri, to be able to pick out those passes. And to a certain extent, he's doing it. We saw him in the game against Orlando City try to play a ball over the top to Kutsias, our young striker. And Kutsias instead made his run like drifting to the outside, almost as if he was going to the corner. Shaqiri played the ball where he should have been and then chewed him out when Gallese was able to come off of his line really easily and just clean it up. And so it's those kind of things where we expect from our DPs, from our big international players, to come in and kind of mold the team. And from a greater league sense, we need to have players doing that to pick the full, I don't know, the competency of the league, the talent of the league to get them to play better.
I mean, people gotta realize that Messi was doing that against the best teams in the world too. So,
Yeah.
come on,
Mm-hmm.
let's not make it seem like it's brand new to MLS. Oh, MLS is bad. No, it's just Messi is that great. But anyway, let's transition
For
to
sure.
this weekend's match. The LA Galaxy
Yeah.
faces Chicago Fire on Saturday. What is it? August 26th at 7:30 p.m. at Dignity Health Sports Park. Last time that these two teams met, it was a draw at no in Chicago. Nick, this time around, you guys are coming over here to the West Coast. What are some key factors that you find with the Chicago Fire that could beat the LA Galaxy, and what are some maybe faults that you guys have coming into this game?
Sure. So it's easy to start with the faults for a team that's sitting in eighth place in the conference. So we'll start there. I am really worried about our back line and our defensive mids. The Fire have had trouble this season in transition defense. Like you saw it with Orlando in both of their games this season, when Facundo Torres can pick his head up and run at the defense, the back line is okay. Who's going to step up, take the ball handler? Who's going to watch the runner? If there is an overload, and Orlando really played that well last weekend. If there's an overload of maybe three attackers on two defenders on one side of the pitch, the Fire struggle shifting and passing off runners and passing off dribblers. So that is where I think they've struggled all season, and that's where I think the Galaxy can take advantage. If Ricky Pooch picks his head up and just runs at the defense, the Fire are going to keep backpedaling and let him take a lot of that space. So that really concerns me uh, for the Chicago Fire and just goal production. It's been a problem all year. The Fire have not been able to score goals, to create expected goals, to create key passes. They just don't know how to generate that kind of offense. So if the Galaxy get an early goal, it's going to be a long, long day for the Fire. Where I see them playing, maybe having an advantage is if Shaqiri can connect with Kutsias or Kai Kamara on some of those quick long balls over the top. If you guys are starting Jalen Neal, I wouldn't expect you guys to start Neal, but he's a little younger, a little inexperienced, if I recall. And the Fire had really good success against Mavinga last season against Toronto. Now we don't have John Duran to embarrass him, but if they can attack those center backs quickly over the top, I think we could have success.
That's the one thing about our club right now is that our defense is much improved from
Scouting.
previous years. But what's that? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm having a little
Oh no.
connection issue, but I was going to say, is that a decent scouting report, or am I talking out of my ass here?
Well, the Galaxy defense has completely been repaired, I guess you could say, especially after Martin Cáceres went down to season-ending injury. But before that, Cáceres, he's definitely was the anchor in the back line with all the experience he has playing for Uruguay in the World Cup and just his career experience in general. But the biggest surprise this season, the most pleasant surprise, was the consistency shown by Jalen Neal. At only 19, I mean, he's turning 20 today, so we can't say he's a teenager anymore. So happy birthday, Jalen!
Happy birthday,
But
Jalen.
Happy
at,
birthday.
at 20 years old, we're watching the maturation of a player who I think is going to be not long for MLS. I think he's going to end up in Europe in the next year or two. Um, So enjoy him while you can. It's kind of like when we had Alfonso Davies playing for Vancouver. Every time he came down, I was just like, damn, this guy's good. This guy doesn't belong here. And it's the same thing with Jalen Neal. I've said it. I said it in the summer. I've said it several times. I feel like it's watching like a young Eddie Pope. He's that calm, collected, cool. He's just all business. He was prone to making some small mental mistakes earlier in the season. Luckily, they really didn't cost us, and it feels like his time with the U.S. national team has helped them uh, clean up a lot of that. Hopefully, we get to see that more of that as the season progresses. But that's one of the big question marks for our guys because we had a we had four major injuries right before Leagues Cup started, and during Leagues Cup we had another injury. But so Vanny and Will Kuntz, who's one of our new front office staff members, they had to figure out how to fix this team because when you have injuries to four starters, that's pretty much the end of your season, right? I mean, season-ending
Yeah.
injuries, and so they brought in a lot of different players that we haven't even seen yet. The latest one was Billy Sharp, who came in from Sheffield United. We mentioned about how he is the all-time goal scoring leader for EFL Championship. He has scored
Wow.
more goals than anybody in the history of Championship, which is pretty amazing. And he had
The
scored
English
14
Kai
goals for
Kamara.
Sheffield. What's that?
To the English Kai Kamara. We're there.
Oh, yeah.
So he had scored 14 goals for Sheffield just a couple of seasons ago. This past season wasn't so good for him. So hopefully, he finds some new life here in LA. We picked up Maya Yoshida from the Japanese national team. He's the captain of the Japanese national team. Michael Barrios from Colorado Rapids. Trying to think who else. Who's the guy from Dallas?
Come on, nigger.
Cirillo.
Face in here. Your
And
Western Conference games are way too late for me. I can't stay up with three kids and watch all day. So I'm
um,
missing some of the player names here.
But also, we picked up the biggest one, the biggest shock for everybody, even for Austin, was Diego Fagundes, who is like such a vital, important part to that team, at least from the point of view of their supporters, who were completely heartbroken when it was announced he was being sent to the Galaxy. I mean, we'll take him, and so there's a lot of question marks in the air. Like, how are these guys gonna acclimate? How are they gonna work together? We haven't even seen 1 minute of MLS play, and that's the biggest question mark going into this weekend. Um,
Do you think
because
Vanny's
there's
going to do a good job integrating them? Like I know he's had his successes and failures in Toronto, and he's had tastes of both in LA. Like, do you think he's the guy who can integrate all these players?
I hope so. I know from his experience, in MLS. I know he's a defensive-minded kind of person, so he works from the back going forward. Having somebody like Mayoshida come in and step in for Martin Cáceres is really big. The fact that you think Mayoshida coming from Japan, but the guy has experience in Premier League. I mean, he speaks fluent English, and I'm sure him and Jalen Neal are going to work well. Um, and that's as far as center backs is concerned. And then Billy Sharp, we've had a lot of issues uh, trying to find anybody that can score a goal. Because, like I said, like, a year ago, the future was Dejan Jovic. It hasn't happened. Then we thought it might be Preston Judd. Not really. So at this point, we're like, Chicharito's done for the season. So it's like, whoo, can somebody please step up? Here comes Billy Sharp. So hey, maybe it's another. It's something similar to what we had with Robbie Keane, who revitalized his career coming to LA. We don't know. All these questions will be answered in the next few weeks, and Chicago is the first step up after what happened with RSL and the Hurricanes. So
Yeah. Which, by the way, I was glad to hear that the hurricane dissipated, that you guys, your listeners and viewers, that everyone in California was doing all right. So that was some welcome news to us over here in the Midwest. So glad everyone's okay.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how the media pumped that up because I mean I used to be in the media. I was a journalist, but I mean most of the damage and all stuff happened in the desert communities where there is very little rain in general, so they don't have the infrastructure for that kind of rain, and to get a year's worth of rain in just a couple of days, that's pretty bad. But as far as like like county, the city, pretty much like unless you had just some damage on your house already, the rain exacerbated it, but nothing to what we expected. I mean, you see these horrible scenes of hurricanes slamming into Florida and Texas, right? We had
Right.
nothing like that. It was just steady rain, thankfully, and we there was some flooding, but nothing where you could be like, oh, it's just apocalyptic. No,
Yeah.
the earthquake made it fun.
I'm gonna say, so Mother Nature goes, I'll just send an earthquake with it. That's all.
Yeah, only in California, man. And we had some fires up north too, so we had fires, earthquakes, and hurricanes all at the same time.
Man,
Just a typical day in California.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But for as far as you're talking about like your offense, and I know Bryant, you mentioned kind of a depth lacking from the Galaxy, going into Leagues Cup and things like that. I think the Galaxy really mirror the Chicago Fire in those type of ways. Not only were they, early clubs, an original club, an original franchise who've fallen on hard times as of late, but the Fire are having an extremely difficult time generating offense. They don't have a reliable striker at all. They have, Kai Kamara, who is I don't know how much longer that man's legs are going to hold up. I'm surprised that he is still doing it at this level right now. So all credit to Kai. They've got Kasper Shabilko, who is great with Philadelphia, but Philadelphia made the real smart move to move him before he started to tail off, and the Chicago Fire never really figured out how to get the best of him as Philly did. I think that was a big tactical thing that the coaches couldn't figure out. But again, that's another discussion. And then they've got a 19-year-old Greek striker who they are trying to grow. And I think he's got a lot of upside. And if he's this fantastic striker next season, they could sell him. If he's an average striker, extend his contract and keep him in MLS. But no reliable offense. And who's going to step up? And I remember looking at the Galaxy team page. Was it is Tyler Boyd your leading scorer this season? Like I
Yeah.
don't think anyone would have hoped for that to happen. Um, so I can relate as a Chicago fan to kind of that lack of goal scoring and the lack of depth. Now I'm happy to hear the Galaxy are signing guys. Chicago is in such a in flux with their front office. Everyone believes that their sporting director and their GM are going to get let go at the end of the season, and that's why nobody has made any signings. We've had one, maybe two. I'm trying to think like summer transfer window signings, and one of them was from their sister club in Switzerland. It was bringing over Ousmane Doumbia from Lugano to Chicago on a short-term DP contract, and then extending a couple current players, signing a couple Chicago Fire two guys. That has been the extent of the Fire's summer transfer. So there is no depth on this roster, and hopefully they can build a little bit of that this offseason. But yeah, I imagine LA Chicago is going to be like 1-1 draw, like a very boring 1-1 draw. I think.
And that's what I was gonna get to. DraftKings has the betting odds up with the LA Galaxy at -110, the draw at +270, and the Chicago Fire at +255, which means they have the LA Galaxy favored. Is that correct? I don't bet much.
Yeah,
I don't bet much.
that's correct.
With
No, I
the
like to keep my money in my pocket, but I know that.
yeah. So with this weekend's match, it seems to me, from the LA Galaxy perspective, we've the LA Galaxy is in 13th place. They need to start making a run now if they want to make it into the playoffs.
Mhm.
Especially now that they have new players that you need to get integrated, you need to start them now. So a player like Maya Yoshida is probably going to start right next to Jalen Neal. For my taste, Jalen Neal is the only starter that's irreplaceable in this team in the back line. And then moving up, we probably get to see Fagundes get some time, and maybe Cerrillo as well. Um, where we can get you guys, I think, would be in the counters. If Ricky Poos is pulling all those strings and starting those counters, I think we could probably do some damage on that. The biggest question is going to be who's going to start at striker. It seems that our newest addition at forward hasn't got his visa ready yet. He's still in Canada trying to get that situated. And then we have Preston Judd and Dejan Jovic, who haven't been the best. So I don't know where the goals are going to come from, but I suspect the LA Galaxy come out with a win, 2-1 at Dignity Health Sports Park. What you think, Edgar?
I think you mentioned two questions. I mean, some questions as far as like who's going to be ready to go. I'm curious to see if we're going to see more of the Summer Costa. I don't know, Nick. I don't know if you've been following Douglas Costa. What a strange fella. I mean, the kind of motivation that you get from knowing that if you go back to your homeland, you're gonna get arrested. Really lights a fire under your ass, man. Because ever since that was announced, he's been playing better. So we call him Summer Costa because last season he was. I think he was just not, either like a days ago or he just wasn't involved and he was injured and then Vanny said, "Oh, getting Costa, back in the summer is like, like having a new DB come in the summer." So we call him Summer Costa. So we had another Summer Costa this year. So hopefully he's back on board. He's engaged, and having him and Tyler Boyd both being part of the offense is really important. One of the biggest gripes we had early in the season was as good as Ricky Pooge can be or is important to this club, he just was not finding Tyler Boyd when he would make these runs. Boyd was going these runs on the wings, and Ricky would just look straight forward and try to needle pass through to somebody instead of noticing that Boyd was open and maybe he could whip the ball back in or or go or catch somebody on a switch. And we started seeing Ricky Pooch start to work with him better, and that's one of the reasons why Galaxy was able to defeat LAFC at the Rose Bowl. So hopefully we see more of that. But gosh, this Leagues Cup break has been so long. I mean, at first you're like, okay, maybe it's going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now it's like a month almost,
Yeah.
or more than a month now. I mean, it's almost 5 weeks. So at this point, you're like, man, these guys either are really, really, rusty or cold, or they're gonna come in here like completely refreshed and revitalized and just start whooping ass. Um,
Treat it
but
like a new season, right? Like you're essentially starting from scratch. If you're the LA Galaxy right now, all the new signings, where you're sitting in the standing, 5 weeks off, like yeah, MLS season part two here.
Yeah.
now I want to be positive
Oh,
because
Edgar, don't do it.
I want to be positive, but I also want to be, want to be respectable. I'll say,
It won't hurt my
1-1 Galaxy, and then Galaxy wins in penalty kicks, right? Oh, wait, it's not Leagues Cup. My bad. No, I'll say 2-1 Galaxy ekes out a win, just barely ekes out a win, and everybody's upset afterward. And so, yeah, it goes to show you like how everybody feels about the club. Where,
But
they win, and you're like, damn it.
but you got to remember, we're playing World Cup Chicago Fire.
That's right. We're gonna ask you about that, Nick. What are the chances for Chicago in the upcoming World Cup here? It must be nice to be playing at home.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, the Fire aren't or Chicago is not hosting any World Cup 2026 games, so that would even lend more credit to that joke. But you can never count a team from Chicago out of it, guys. Just you can never count them out for sure.
Yeah,
All right.
and it goes back to the last time that we played you guys. It was a very close game. The defensive side of Chicago was, not letting the LA Galaxy do anything. Granted, it's two different squads now, but the fire is still in the team. And yeah, I want the LA Galaxy to win, but that's just me being as positive as possible moving forward because I do want to see the LA Galaxy sneak into that ninth spot and make it to the playoffs. But we'll see. Hopefully, we don't see a smashing by the Chicago Fire on our LA Galaxy on home turf,
Goodness.
which would
I
be
don't
the
think it
worst.
will.
It would be the worst thing, but we'll see. It's on a Saturday, so hopefully everything goes well between both teams, no injuries, and we see a good match.
That's all I can ask for. As just a fan of the game, like let's see a good game. Let's see a couple goals. I mean, of course, I'd love to see the Chicago Fire win. There was a period of time this season where a lot of Fire fans were hoping that they would lose because that would be the only way we could see any change within our front office, within the coaching staff, and not just Ezra. I mean, we were talking before, like you were saying, Ezra, he's a great guy, and nobody disputed that, and everyone had great stories about him in Chicago. But it's like, okay, the only change we've made so far, we fired a head coach, and we promoted the assistant who's been there for 10 years, Frank Klopas, to the interim manager. Why did you get rid of him too? He's the only person who's been here for the last decade of sucking that the Chicago Fire have had, and now you made him the interim manager. To me, that doesn't make much sense. So there was definitely a point in time where Fire fans were like, lose, 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 fire all the coaches, fire all the front office people, get rid of all your expiring contracts, and just become another expansion team, essentially. So I think we've reached that point that they know the front office is going to be gone. So I can start cheering for them to win again, as unlikely as I think it's going to be.
That story sounds so familiar, Edgar, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But it worked out for us.
Yeah, it did work out. Well, Nick, thank you again for joining us on this midweek show on a Thursday night. Hopefully, we get this out later on tonight. That way, we can share it. And yeah, thank you again for joining us. Do you have anything that you want to plug in?
No, I just want to say thank you guys. It's always great to meet other MLS fans. That's really why I started it, just to have the conversations, to grow the sport through conversation, connect with fans all over Chicago and the country. If anyone out there wants to subscribe to the Feed the Fire podcast, look me up on Spotify, iTunes, Google. We just got listed on Amazon, so we're out there on all your major platforms. We're on YouTube at Glass House Soccer, and hopefully this off season we can add some more entertainment and videos to our YouTube repertoire. But yeah, it'd be great to connect with people on Twitter as well at Glass House Soccer, and I look forward to maybe seeing some of your comments at the game on Sunday
Oh, there you go.
or Saturday. Excuse me. Yeah.
Edgar, where can they find you?
Everybody can find me on Twitter or X,
Oh, yeah.
or Instagram as Edgar Nags Brent.
You can find me on Instagram and X as Bryant Nags. And of course, you can find Edgar and myself here on News Across the Galaxy every Sunday live and on their midweek shows, which happen to be on Thursdays, not so midweek. So we need to work on that. Once again, thank you, Nick. We're going to get up out of here from Edgar, myself, and Nick. We are out of here. Keep on nagging.